like they're texting her at night. Hey, I bought a new car today. I got to have coverage. She's getting all these requests for new quotes. So, I mean, her right now, she's crazy busy. So it's going to burst loose. It really is, I believe.
It
Are
is.
you guys ready to start with some listing objections?
Let's do it.
Over here.
It's 1:05, so I know everybody's on a time crunch. If you guys open the chat box, I put a DropBox link in there that has the workbook and some other materials that we covered in part 1, 2, should anybody need it, but it's in there. Most of you guys are familiar with Zoom. I left it up there so you guys can play around with it. That's how you get familiar with it. Don't be afraid to press buttons is what I always tell people. But welcome to Listing Objections Part 2. And again, thanks for coming. We've had some awesome responses to the way that we're doing these classes now, and we keep them to an hour. We're tailoring them more around discussion over specific objections that you guys are all facing in the field, and we're not really going like page by page or slide by slide. So it's been really awesome. Some couple like important things to remember before we dive into objections is any kind of dialogue that you guys get out of this book, make it your own. Don't be afraid to mix it up. You know, just the important thing is to not be robotic when you're practicing this dialogue. So always make it yourself. On top of that, we have some agents attending today. I know we have Jeff and Jason on here, Jeff Winters. You guys are all on here. So thank you for coming. We're all going to get some different ideas from each other and just be able to have that open discussion. That way you guys can take that and apply it, you know, out in the field, and it makes it a little easier. So if you guys have some downtime, read through the book. There's always lots of great material through all of the momentum sources. If you haven't had time, I would highly suggest that you do that. And that way you can kind of get an understanding of the content that they put together well, as well, and kind of how they handle that dialogue. So anyway, here we go. I'm pumped. I just wanted to do a quick recap from part 1 before we dive into more of what got brought up as far as objections that people have brought up that they want to talk about. But some of the things that we covered in part 1 was we talked about the 6 ways to prevent objections from occurring or questions or concerns, you know, allowing sellers to self-discover, being a consultant and not an opinion giver, remain logical and be a leader to your clients. And then tracking your results, also utilizing those results to spar every day so you guys can get better. That's the only way you're going to master dialogue is if you just practice it all the time. Some ways to become professionally attractive. We covered some of those too. In the book, it gives you like a long list of dispositions that you want to have, but you know, we always just want to keep in mind that we want to treat our business like a business and service our clients professionally because we are professionals, no different than lawyers and doctors, things like that. So keep those things in mind as well. We also talked about the importance of having confidence. Objections disappear with the more confidence that you guys can have in your tool belt. So really focus on your confidence level. Again, sparring helps with that. Every time that you're sparring or role playing or practicing or just reflecting on objections that you've come into contact with, make sure that you're just really feeling that and putting it into your confidence levels every time, because you're going to get better as you go along, the more you keep practicing. And then we also talked about the importance of having a system. You know, we prevent objections from the start with the more systematic that we can be. So get your process, focus on your process or your system when it comes to handling objections, and then tweak it to how you can make it better for yourself. We also talked about like how to slow things down. Mel did a really great job of bringing up how like she took sips of water or tried to redirect questions in her own way so that way she could be in control and also have some time to think and reflect even with her clients and in front of her. So don't be afraid to slow things down, you know, grab a drink if you need a second to think. A lot of different agents, a lot of you guys have different quirks. I'm sure even Jason and Jeff have kind of their own little things, but don't be afraid to take your time and slow down. So I thought those were really great points to bring up. And then lastly, you know, just during COVID-19 with everything that we have going on, a lot of agents are are saying that they love to show empathy right now during this time. Empathy can be really powerful, and clients are really just searching for someone to listen to them, to respect and hear their feelings. So having and displaying that empathetic approach, it can land you the deal sometimes, especially during stressful times like this. So the more empathetic you can be, the better. And then I also kind of just wanted to bring up some objections that we already talked about. We talked about a transaction fee objection. Things that we covered kind of with this one is, don't be afraid to place it in your contract. Stating things like, it's charged by our office, or that they won't pay a dime until closing. Also with transaction fees, start high and come down with your clients too. They're not going to know any different. But it'll also make it feel like a win to your client as well, saying like, oh, I charge $298, but I'm going to bump it down to $198 for you. That can be really powerful as well. We talked about the wrong time of year objection. We get this one a lot. And we talked about how you want to take kind of a team approach with your clients with this one. Jessica Bruce brought up how she stated that she uses the saying between like January and February, there's fewer inventory, but people who are coming here and looking are the ones that are really willing to buy. You can also state that the internet or online activity is really heavy right now. So a lot of those things can help overcome that it's the wrong time of the year, or maybe some things about COVID going on right now. People are looking, things are happening all the time. It's not just a specific time of year for our market.
Hey, Kaylin.
Yeah.
Could I say something about the like transaction fee and commissions and things?
Absolutely.
So when I first met Jason Whittle, I kind of liked him, and thought he was good and everything. And I said, well, what do you charge for commission? And he said 7%. And I said, I've never even heard of that. And he said, just trust me, follow me, and you'll get it. And I said, okay, I will do it. And he gave me all the tools to do it, and showed me the way. And like you were saying, start high and come low or whatever. After seeing their way and doing it and trusting them and following the process, I charge 7% because we are worth it. We are the #1 small market RE/MAX shop in the world. And we've got all these great minds behind us. And like with me, I've got a lot of good ideas, but when I need something done, I mean, Krantz knows I'm knocking at his door, asking him questions, and Mel knows that I'm calling her. And so when I build people up for the whatever the transaction fee is or the commission, like I had one guy tell me, oh, I wouldn't pay more than 5%, and he thought his place was worth $285,000. And I said, well, and this was at Land's End, and I said, well, let me dig into this for you a little bit. And I said, well, your place should be $299. And so when the seller was saying, hey, I'm at 5%, like that's all I can pay, it's like, well, I got you to $299. I'm going to charge you 7% because I'm going to work really hard, and we've got this great shop behind us. Like you basically, you're making more money. Like you're not paying a commission if that's what you wanted, 285 minus 5%. So I stand tall, but I do like present that I'm going to do the work with it. I don't know, Jeff, Jason.
Hey, Jesse, you've got the very first part of this whole thing down pat, and that is believing that you're different. First of all, when you have objections, we talk a lot about, part of our conversation is going to get rid of a lot of the objections, especially the pricing part, but you're going to get objections. So the very first thing is you have to believe you're different. You have to believe that sales is noble and that you're better, that you truly are going to do a better job than other people. If you don't believe that, you're going to have a really hard time charging more than anybody else.
I love that point too, Jesse.
And you've got that, Jesse. So if everyone will just understand that, man, I'm going to do things for you that the other people that you're interviewing just aren't going to. Well, I'm going to put more money in your pocket at the end of the day.
But Jason,
so scared.
Do you remember when you and I were sitting in the conference room when I first met you and we had that little chat? I just wanted to throw that out there for somebody like Paige who's coming on new, and and you know, just she's reading things and whatever. I just wanted to give her some real experience into it.
That's what it's about, though. Like, Jesse, that's absolutely what this is about. So that's awesome.
It's like, hey, stand tall, and you know, present all the things that you guys give to us, and you get that 7%. And on land, like I've got those 2 land deals going, and they say, well, what do you charge for land? It's like 10% plus $198. They go, oh, well, that's really high. And you say, listen, you give them all the tools. You say, this is who we are. This is who I am. Let me do a good job for you. Let me bring you an offer. And, you know, in the case that there's still an objection there, you say, let me get you an offer, and I'm totally flexible. If there's something that needs to be done at the end, we can do that. But let's start at the beginning. Let's give everybody a chance, and then you know, if I need to bend my commission a little bit at the end, we can do that.
Yeah, I love those points. Thank you for bringing that up, especially for new agents. It is really awesome to hear. Just a couple more that we covered. We talked about improvements of to the home objection. So with this objection, we talked about the importance of asking a lot of questions, like what work specifically needs to be done. This also kind of depends on the client, and some work, you know, may not be essential to the sale of the home, and some work will. So it really just depends. Ask a lot of questions. And then taking that time to educate your clients on just like proper home improvements versus some that may not be needed are all good things that kind of flow into that objection. Excuse me. We also had lending objections due to COVID-19. This was brought up through an example that an agent was struggling with personally last time. So lending may be stricter during this time, and we may find out more as we keep going. And buyers may be harder to, like, may have a harder time to get approved. But, you know, be factual and bring facts if you can, and be empathetic to those clients, and try to assist where you can with lending concerns, you know, and really just try to help them based off of the client and their financial needs and what they're facing. So you can kind of overcome it that way, just depending on the situation. And then finally, market objections. We talked about specifically that the market may be crashing. You know, we're hearing people worried about that right now. And, you know, we want to bring facts to those types of objections, as well as turn COVID into a positive message, saying things like, you know, people are here and they're safe, and that we're still experiencing our crazy season with lots of activity. But it's just more virtual right now. You know, turning people's struggles or concerns into positive messages can overcome objections like that too. You know, a recession, I was in a training today, and one of our regional managers, you know, he talked about how a recession doesn't equal a housing crisis. And I feel like those are so valid points to bring up to your client base if you can, especially with factual information. So those were some that we covered from part 1. Let's continue and talk about some objections that you guys had brought up in part 1 that we didn't have time for or didn't cover. The first one being listing high and then coming down objection, talking about the listing price, not what you're charging. Mel, can you kind of give me some insight on, you know, starting that price high and then coming down? Mel on here.
Where'd she go? She's muted.
No, sorry. I'm muted. Okay.
Sorry, Mel.
Am I on? Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, so are you saying if they want to start too high?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I kind of have differing opinions on this, because I think we are in a unique market, and I give them a range. I have gotten bit by not taking that listing. You cannot reduce a listing that you do not have. So I will play with them. So, you know, now if it's 100 grand over, I'm probably not your gal. But I am not going to argue you over maybe 25,000, maybe even 50, if it's really a higher end. I will play with you. But the objection where I go with them is, listen, let's start here, because you know what? I don't have a crystal ball, and you may get it. And I'm not going to lose the listing because I know it's going to sell. It's got to be a good property that's going to sell. However, if we don't have any showings within those first 30 days, we're not getting any internet hits, then that means the market rejected us, and we're gonna have to adjust towards that. So if we're all on the same page, I'll proceed. But I don't want it to have not a win-win, because the minute you sign, I start spending money on it. So it doesn't behoove me to go ahead and do this and know we're not gonna get any results. So it just depends, but I'm not gonna lose it by not trying it. And that's me, but I've just seen it bite me too much in the past.
No, we do that a lot as well. And then we always encourage everybody to do is follow up with an email that lays out the plan, because what you'll find is sellers get amnesia that you discussed about the price adjustments.
Yeah.
And so if you can follow it up with an email that just lays out your plan, then they have an easier time remembering what you discussed.
We always you know, make sure to tell them that they're the seller. You know, they have the right to price their property where they want, but this is our only chance. This is our only opportunity to give them the realistic range of what the market appears that it will accept today. And it's important for them to understand what's put in motion stays in motion. So if you start out really high, you're going to cause your competition to sell. The market is always moving. Today, there's this house, this house, this house, and this house. If it looks based upon the comps like you belong here and you're going to put yourself up here, you're going to cause these to sell. So as long as they understand that, it's a really fine line, because what Mel is talking about, you know, applies to all markets at some point. If you had that flat lakefront lot in a nice area in a decent price range. I mean, Gary was the one this morning in the meeting telling us the story about losing a multiple offer at $25,000 over. There is price ranges that are super hot. So we have to be flexible on both ends of the coin with that. I think it's a challenge.
One thing, if I could add to what I do, I save the CMA that I bring with them. They get a copy and I keep a copy. And I bring that back up. I had a couple, they were older. They were just really cute. So I went ahead and did it because I knew they'd come down. And they beat me down. I got tired of listening to them that day at their house. So I took it. But then we had to have a talk 30 days later. And I said, listen, kids, I'm going to send you the CMA that we talked about. And remember, I told you 175 was your number. You wanted 215. And I did that just to be sweet to you because I like you. But we are nowhere ever going to get that. Are you ready to reduce? So we had to reduce twice till we finally got an offer. But I just took a gamble, and honestly, I just got tired sitting there. So I'm like, all right, whatever, let's try it. And then but it cost me 2 months. I had to wait.
You know, Jane has the things, they call it the Jane Kelly diet on listings like that. I love it. I got that term when I got here. If they're overpriced and they know it, but she'll go into it, well, we're going to put you on the Jane Kelly diet. We're going to reduce it by $5,000 after 30 days, and then another $5,000 if the market's not going, then we're going to put it. So that's a thing we got in here. I think it's cute. I like that term. It's not so,
love that.
We can make it fun.
Yes.
You know, it's not as serious. So I might call it the Mel Krantz diet.
No, you can't have that.
Got a little COVID-19 going on. Got to get that down.
There you go.
Jeff, that's a real deal. I mean, that's a way to negotiate your way to where you want to be. Not slam your fist down or walk away from a listing that is saleable. We kind of tease each other in here. Sometimes it's not so much joking on my part, because I think there isn't I really believe that, and it's different. Like to Mel's point, $175,000 house, a $200,000 home off the water in a subdivision with an active number of comps, you probably do know the value. But some of these properties down here are sometimes there isn't an agent or an appraiser that knows the exact value. And if we paint ourselves into a box, we might be leaving money on the table for them. I've seen it happen both ways, and that suggestion that you had is a nice way to be able to negotiate a change if the market doesn't receive their, if the market doesn't receive it well, and they don't generate offers or they don't generate showings. That's a way to balance that out.
Mhm.
We owe it to our clients to make sure that we are being truthful and honest and trying to get them to price it appropriately. But you're going to have those people, just like Mel said, that they're just not going to listen. And at that point, you've got to make a decision. Are you willing to take that listing or not? And so obviously, especially whenever I first got into the market, I first got into real estate, there was a lot of, you turned down a lot of listings because they just were not real. You had to want to sell back then. Now with the market going up, you're much more likely to take a chance on somebody. So, the old adage is sometimes you get that old seller that, well, I just want somebody to make an offer. Well, if it's negotiations what you want, negotiations what you're going to get. And the truth is that I'm going to leave your money on the table if we do that, because just like Jeff said, it's the theory of what goes in motion stays in motion. Where we should have listed is going to create leverage for me. And the moment I lose leverage is the moment I start leaving your money on the table. And so we don't want that to happen. We don't want to have to price adjust.
No, but the beautiful thing is that in this market, back to that want or need type deal, these people might want to sell, but a lot of them don't have to. So, what we hear a lot is, well, I'm not giving my property away. Jeff is laughing because he's heard that a lot. I mean, and if you want to fight that, you got to come up with a creative way to handle that, because at that point they're in the driver's seat.
Well, I have a Kevinism. I call them Kevinisms from my days with my brother. Kevin had one that says, you know what? Nobody makes any money until we get it sold. I'm taking on all the risk and all the upfront cost to get it sold. It's not costing you a penny. But if nobody's going to make any money until we get a contract. So, where you want to go? You want to sell it and get your money and move on, or you just want to sit on the market and let it sit?
Can I jump in?
Sure.
Sidetrack from wherever everyone was, I'm not sure. Jeff, you remember that Four Seasons lot deal I was telling you about yesterday?
Yep.
So I just went offline and went and that's done. Listed.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, and to give everyone else the backstory, I called Jeff yesterday. I was running around doing errands, and I told a guy that I bump into every day, I said, hey, do you got the market's on fire right now. Do you got anything you want to sell? And he goes, oh, I got this Four Seasons lot, but they're not worth anything. They're worth zero. They give them away at charity auctions and stuff. And I said, well, just let me look into it. I said, is it listed under, is it titled under your name or an LLC, or what's the deal? He goes, no, it's under my name. I said, well, okay, I'll go find it and I'll look into it. So I called Jeff, and Jeff says, well, these Four Seasons lots are actually, some of them do have some value, and just essentially work it. So I did, and I looked into it, and this lot is, Jeff was talking, some have zero value, like they have a steep grade or something. This one, when we did a GIS on it, it's at the end of Cherokee, and the competition is like, did I lose everyone?
No.
Oh, my screen just went crazy. You can still see me?
Yep.
Oh, well, my screen's weird, but I'll keep talking. So the competition around this guy's lot is like $5,000. And so Jeff was talking, some are like really steep grade, they're worth nothing. Some are worth $10,000. So I just called the guy when I muted my screen. I called the guy and I said, hey, you know what? He wants to get his $5,000 back out of it. And I wanted to charge a bigger commission. Then Jeff and I were talking about what commissions would be. And so I just called the guy and I said, hey, let's at least get that thing for sale. I'm not excited about it. I don't know if it's going to sell, but right now as it sits, you want to get rid of it so you stop paying Four Seasons assessments and tax, and you'd like to get your $5,000 back. So if it's not for sale, no one's going to buy it. If you exposed it and we put it out there, there'd at least be a chance. He goes, well, what would you charge for that? And I said, well, I talked to Krantz yesterday, and we went around and around and around about how to do this. And we finally came down to a conclusion. And myself personally, I came down to a conclusion on how I want to do it. And I want to do kind of like Jeff does it, but I want to charge a little bit more. And so I told him I would split the commission, buyer, seller, 50-50, but my minimum commission would be $2,000 plus $198. And he goes, well, you know, what would that get me out of it and whatever. And I said, this is not a lot that is going to be on fire for sale, but let's just get it for sale. So I don't think the sale price really matters, because there's some that are for sale for $1,000. There's some that are for sale for $5,000. There's some that are for sale for $10,000. So if someone wants it and they want to build on it, it doesn't really matter.
No, but
this list price. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, you know, one of the things that we talked about there was converting leads, you know, and those people own other properties. They
Right.
own other, you know, they own other things. So, I mean, it was, you know, it's good to be open to all of that.
Right. And so then, and that's what Jeff and I also talked about yesterday was like, just work it. Work this one, because this guy owns a lake house and he owns property up on Osage Beach Parkway. I mean, he owns property everywhere. It's like, let's just start working together. Right. And maybe this one happens, maybe it doesn't, but you're working together now.
Right.
Speaking of working together, Mel, can you hit the next one that someone wanted an answer to? My friend is an agent. Objection. I have another friend in the industry.
Oh, Kaylin.
Yeah.
Do you remember that email that you sent out to me, that you forwarded to me about my friend as an agent?
Yeah, from Phyllis. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a really good one.
Yeah, send that to anyone who wants it, I would say. I have to restart my computer, guys. Sorry.
I will. Okay.
So if they say if my friend is an agent,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Where do they work? So I basically just try to break it down and explain, you know, you are making a business decision here. So I would really encourage you to still let me come out and interview with you. And then I need to make sure I bring all my stats and just kind of, well, I mean, I really try to figure out where they're from. You know, if it's a one-man shop or if they don't have any experience, then I really don't have an issue. It's when they're really good, and I know that they're really good, I go into the fact, you know, I have found through the years, sometimes it's very difficult to work with friends and family. Mm-hmm. Because you have that personal connection with them. It's hard to have the tough conversations that we're going to have today, which is pricing, negotiation, and exposure. You know, if you're unhappy, I don't want you to lose a friend over one of your largest investments. So I would encourage you to go with me versus that. I just seen it cause too many, you know, heartache for you down the road. And, you know, I'd be happy to pay them a referral as well. You know, I understand if that person expected this, let me compensate them and they'll still help me try to sell it, but that might be the best thing for you. So I will open that door. I won't just squash it, but it's a terrible idea sometimes, terrible.
That's a great point, Mel, like how you separate the personal versus business. Phyllis had done an email that she had let me share with this class before, and her email was a response to a listing conversation that she was having, and this objection came up. They had a friend in the industry, and Phyllis's email was basically like, well, I'm so glad that you have a friend in the industry. It would be surprising if you didn't. There's over 700 agents in our market. So a lot of people know a lot of people. Just make sure that when you're having this conversation with this other agent, that's your friend, that, you know, you're making sure you're asking this and asking this. And also here's some examples of some stuff that we do when we list your property. please let me know if you don't get answers to these questions or if I can help in any way. And that was a really great response to that particular kind of objection as well. So I wanted to share that. Thanks to Jesse for bringing it up and reminding me.
Yeah, she really laid it out. Phyllis laid it out really well. And that's the beautiful thing about objections. Very rarely are any of them new.
Mm-hmm.
We all get the exact same objections pretty much. So once you're comfortable with your own responses to each one, I mean, it's just a matter of tweaking it and getting a little better each time. But I like that, Mel.
Jason,
I would also just start the conversation by Mel kind of ask where they work at. Ask if they're full time.
oh yeah, that's a good.
Ask if they're full time, and then there may be a chance. Those are the hardest to compete against because no matter how good you are, sometimes a friendship you're just not going to get that. But it's always good to be number 2 or number 3, as Jane says. Firstborn, second wife, third realtor. So it's not always a loss, even if you don't get it. So don't forget that.
Well, the other thing you can sprinkle in there is there are so many agents at the lake, and we work really hard to keep a great relationship with all of them. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is cooperating well with them. And what that means is that we make the transaction smooth, and we also offer as much compensation as we can, because we want to reward agents for working with us, for selling your property. And I want you to know that even if you decide to work with me over your friend, I am going to offer to pay her as much as possible.
Let me jump in on this one. And part of the reason I wanted to join with you guys and also with RE/MAX, RE/MAX's structure is not for part-time people. And a lot of times we forget that Keller Williams, they go, everyone works for Keller Williams, they're all retired and whatever, because you can do it for free essentially. And RE/MAX is not that way. So one thing that even I forget to do sometimes is like, we are not part-timers. Like, if you want your place sold, our structure at RE/MAX is not, I'm retired and I can sell a house a year. Like, RE/MAX is like, we move and we shake. And Jeff wants to jump in.
I do, because you flipped a switch in my head. Unique selling proposition, and this is a specific to any objection. And you just turn something on there. No matter if you're a team member or if you're a primary agent or if you're an independent agent with another company, you have to identify your own unique selling proposition. Because, Jesse, there are agents that literally work 6 months a year that they've done a great job defining their unique selling proposition, and they're still really busy. So you've got, you hit on one that you could spend towards full time, and another person could, hit on a different one. That's just very important with objections, I think.
When I come up, again, like when I first met Jason about the 7% thing, or also when I come up against these objections, my friend's an agent or my sister, and everyone at the lake is an agent. We have unique qualities about us, and this is how I structure my own, that we're hard workers, and we and that's one thing. Like, RE/MAX people, we're not laissez-faire. Like, if you want your place sold, we are the people that sell it.
Right.
And the other one with that, I lost the other one. Sorry. I digress.
That's okay. Realtors are like squirrels, so let's keep us going.
Jason, I was hoping that you could hit on this next one. The client calls before you actually have an appointment in person and asks what you charge over the phone.
Yeah, like if that's the first thing they ask, like they call and they say, "Hey, what do you charge?"
Yeah. Hey, what do you charge?
Yeah, so that's a great one. Most people, if you say, "Well, I charge 7%, 190," like they're going to hang up on you.
Mm-hmm.
But don't do that. So, the first thing I do is I just ask them a question back. So let me understand this right. Are you are you deciding who's going to list your home, who's going to sell your home, maybe your largest investment, I don't know if it is or not, but one of your largest investments by who is the cheapest? I'd love the opportunity to just sit down with you and show you why at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I charge you 5% or 10% or anywhere in between, that I'm going to put more money in your pocket. There's nobody here at the lake that's going to put more money in your pocket at the end of the day. So I would encourage you not to go with someone, even if you don't use me, like don't go with who's the cheapest.
I like that. Awesome.
How many people have heard that on here? Who has heard that on the phone? What do you charge? It's so common because of the people that we deal with, and they want to drill you over the phone. And I love, not only do I love that script, Jason, but I love how you hesitate.
Yeah.
Well, another one I've got. Oh, sorry, Jeff. Another
okay.
one I've got in my wheelhouse, as far as the hard workers or whatever. For people that ask me these things and why are you worth this or whatever, and they don't see, I tell them all my value already. One little like ace is like, I don't have any kids, and it's like your listing will be my child, and this is just the way I spin things. I mean, like, I don't have to go to soccer practice. Like, I can go show your property, and that's just a personal one for me. But anyone else can use whatever
It works for them. Yeah.
personal things for them.
Well, that's a great one on the next one, Jesse. Why should I list with you? Objection. That would be, that goes back to everybody has their own individual value proposition. And not to skip ahead, I think there's some more stuff out there that we probably ought to cover on the phone call. But everybody, what we have to understand, doesn't matter if you're a primary agent, you have a value proposition. If you're a team member, you have a value proposition. If you're a team leader, you have a value proposition. Everybody has their own, and it's just being able to articulate that in a way, and you've done a good job of finding one. So we go back to that kind of, I know Jeff and Mel, you both got a pretty good one on the what you charge.
Yeah, Mel, what do you say on the phone?
When they ask that,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great question. Then I pause. So I'll say, well, that's a great question. Commission is negotiable. And I'd actually rather, before we go into that, is try to show you what we do to earn our money. Because I don't want that to be the deciding factor for you. There's so many unique things that go on when we sell a property at the lake. It's not just about what the agent's charges, what I agree to co-broke and pay the other agent. There's so many factors into it. So versus just one number, because you're going to find numbers that range from 5% to 10%. So again, it's negotiable, but I would really like to be able to at least sit down with you, because this is your highest investment, most likely here at the lake. If not, it's your second or your third. I'd rather show you what I do before we just go over the cost, because there's always a cost to doing business. So let's kind of see maybe if it's a win-win for both of us before you make that one decision just over a percentage point.
I've had someone actually ask me, like, nose to nose, is that negotiable? And I told them flat out, totally honest. I said, everything's negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Is that negotiable? Yes, it is. Someone could list it. I didn't quite say it like this. I'm just telling this to you guys. But I mean, you could list it for nothing if you wanted to. But when someone's asking me, is that negotiable? Yeah,
but it is. Everything's negotiable. I don't think we should be naive about it because we don't know. I like that. The other answer you could say, what do you charge? Nothing until I get you successfully to the closing table with a deal that you're happy with, that you're comfortable with.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
No, what do you charge? Nothing until we get to the closing table. I don't get paid unless you get paid.
This is why I call Krantz 3 times a day.
But I mean, you're going to get those people on the phone that hammer. I mean, these people are strong, a lot of them. So you got to be prepared for that. I love that.
Jason, this was one that you brought up in the last class. The sign call or the ad call, how we convert those. And we wanted to bring this up because we feel like it gets overlooked a lot on our day-to-day. You know, we get calls so many times. So Jason, I know you wanted to hit on this one for sure.
I just think this is one that we need to make sure that, you know, this is an objections class, and this is not necessarily an objections, but it is a skill set. You know, I think it goes right along with what we're talking about here. And I've personally experienced it. I've seen it. Jeff's got a great example that I'd love to share, that I hope he shares with the group, about a trainer that actually came in and talked about it. But if we truly believe that we're professionals, if we truly work on our craft, and if we truly are different, we should be able to, when we get a call in, we need to make sure that we have whatever we're going to say mastered. And that doesn't mean we need to sound robotic. That doesn't mean to make it sound like we have to say the exact same thing every time. But we need to have something that's our go-to. We need to make sure that we sound professional, because every time that phone rings, we need to make sure that we look at it as an opportunity. And I think so many times we get, I don't know if we get lazy, or we get, you know, if you're used to working Zillow calls and you get 100 bad ones, like, you don't know what the next call is. Maybe you've had 6 salesmen call you in a row. You better sound excited the very next time the phone rings, because it might be somebody who's looking to buy a house. You know, they might be on their boat ready to pull the trigger. So I think, first of all, it's a mindset. Again, kind of going back big picture, it's kind of a mindset thing, that be excited when the phone rings. Be excited when they're just asking, oh, it's just somebody just asking about a price. Well, maybe that's, you know, that home didn't work for them. We need to look at it as an opportunity to make sure, again, it's not just, we're not just throwing out the price of a home. Even if we know it off the top of our head, we need to make sure that we have a process where we're stalling. During that stall, we're acting like we're looking for it. But during that time, we're trying to make a connection with them. We're asking them questions. We're trying to make something where we connect on a deeper level, so that we can continue this conversation and allow me to somehow either.
Could I offer something that I've been talking with Jeff with over today about the last couple of days off my calls?
Yes.
So what I do on my calls, and I've been getting a lot on my own listings, when they call in, you know, what's the story? You know, tell them the story. Well, what are you looking for? And what is your email address? Because you already have their phone number. They already called in. What's your email address? I can send you the full listing. And so you've collected, you know, their name, phone number, and now you have their email address, which is basically everything you need to market to them forever. And you send them the full listing and ask maybe a couple more questions, saying, okay, that property looks good for you. Is it perfect? Is it not? Like, I would love to sell my own property, but if we need to find you something that's right, what are you really looking for? So I just ask a couple more questions, but I collect all their information at once, communicate with them immediately, and then plug them in. You know, that's the rapport building. I plug them into the pipeline, and now we're looking for property for them, even if it's not mine. I don't know, Jeff, Jason, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, Jesse, I'm glad you said that, because Mel is on here, Pat, Virginia. You guys might remember this, but we had a trainer. It was Wayne Frederick, and we were at Osage National. Does anybody remember this? And he said, okay, here's the deal. There was like 50 or 60 of us in the room. He said, here's the deal. Somebody tell me a listing. And so somebody yells out a listing, and he asked a couple questions about it. And he said, I'm about to call your top 5 competitors. And so he called these companies on speakerphone with us there, did a basic buyer call, but he literally fed the agent information. I'm a doctor, I'm transferring into the area. He fed them information that would allow an agent to convert an up call to a client. Not one of them did it. So most of them were very nice, but didn't ask the questions. most of them volunteered the information too quickly, in my opinion. And I if I remember right, one was kind of fairly annoyed. But anyway, the point is, we'll never get to the chance to deal with objections if we don't convert a call or an internet lead. And to piggy, the issue is, it is a challenge. You have a very short window when opportunity knocks to open the door. And you better be ready to find some common ground to bond, to give the information that they need. If you don't know where that property is that they're calling about, and you don't have a good idea of the lake, if they're on the water, or if they're calling about a certain area and you can't speak to amenities, I mean, you're kind of putting yourself in an issue there. So you should have a decent knowledge base to have a conversation around that. But then, in my opinion, when you can, if I could always pick the time, I would do this prior to giving the information they called in on. So Jesse, you're calling about the gray house that's in the cove. I think I'm around the 20-mile marker. I would also, I would try to stall a little bit and let you know that, oh, you know what? I'm pulling that information up right now. It's an awesome day. I wish I was on the water. And you know what? After I find this and give it to you, there's a couple other lake houses that are very similar to that we've got coming up.
Well,
Jeff, you know what?
Jeff,
it's coming up right now.
The way that you're doing it, like we've been talking about other things, like that's your, maybe one way of doing it. My way of doing it might be my way, but whatever. But whatever it is to keep the conversation going. If somebody calls, right, yours of saying, oh, there's a couple more listed right there. That's good. Mine, I was saying, collect the email address and get them the full listing and then say, what else are you looking for? Any way you go about it, just keep the conversation going, I think.
Correct. And get the information.
Yes. And like even,
you'd be surprised, Jesse.
Go ahead.
One thing that agents forget is that consumers don't know that we can represent every property on the market. Consumers sometimes don't even realize that we have the MLS to service them and find any other company's listings. So, I mean, even a very simple statement that we take for granted, like, after I get you this information and we talk about what you're really looking for and what you guys really want, I just want you to know that I have the ability to look into everyone's listings at Lake of the Ozarks, and I can try to do some more research into that, and just different ideas to convert that call.
Well, and like where my so the Zillow calls that come in, and even just regular buyers or sellers or whatever, they've all been on Zillow, and they call you and they say, oh, I saw this property or whatever, and I tell them, I say, hey, you know what? Zillow is really user friendly. That's why everyone does it and they use it. They go, oh, well, this sold for that and this is listed for that. It's like, I tell them, I say, Zillow is very user friendly and it's a great jumping off point, but we have the inside tools that have all the dock space, the septic. I can tell you more, and Zillow's just not accurate for what's out there. And I actually got a referral from a KC from one of my donut runs when I was doing installs. So for anyone on the call who's not familiar, Jeff and I go up and I hand out donuts at the other Remax offices and do magnet installs and hand out all my magnets. Well, I just got a referral from a KC Remax agent that said, oh, my sister wants a property and you're a really friendly guy and you seem to know a lot about the lake. And so I'm going to send her down and you can just pay me a referral. I go, sure, why not? And so she sent me the sister, and this is a juiced in person who's very close to real estate. She goes, oh, I'm looking on Zillow and I found this and this and this. And, well, I kind of want to look at this. And I'm like, well, that one's got septic. This one's got sewer. Let me show you around. Let me send you a search. And I sent it back out to her, and we actually increased the price, what she's looking for. And it's like, oh, you know, and she goes, I really want it done. And
Yeah.
her original number was 300. And I'm like, at the lake, done at 300, like take a number. Like everyone wants it done at 300. And so she bumped her price up a little bit. Now we're kind of working towards like 350. And it's like, just, I don't know, working them through the process. And
Yeah.
and, yeah.
That's good. I mean, that's what you got to do. Kaylin, I took us off task for that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're fine. Hey, Mel, I wanted to hit one more with you. What about the, I have to have 20 grand or 25 grand to buy another house?
When they want more,
Mm-hmm.
why?
I gotta move. I gotta buy another house.
I understand that's what you want. I just don't know if the market will be able to make that happen for us. So we need to figure out if that's even attainable for you. We might have to readjust everything that you're thinking, because it may not be possible. And I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you, something that can happen where I don't think it can. I'd rather under promise. You don't want to over promise someone,
Mhm.
because sometimes it's just not realistic, and it can be heartbreaking for them, especially in certain price ranges. If they're in a lower price range, I get it.
Right.
And sometimes it's the best thing not to list their property. And it's just hard conversations, because what you want and what we can get are two different things.
Absolutely.
Well, I love what you said there. There were little nuances, but if you notice, she said, I don't know if the market, she didn't say, I didn't know if I can get, and then you said us. You were already making the analogy that you guys are a team. And it's little things like that, just in your wording, that are huge. You're making them already feel like, oh yeah, she's in this with me. And it's not her. She didn't say, I can't get that. She said, I don't think the market's going to allow us to get it. I like that. That was good.
That's really good. And what I would always preface that with is, I love real estate, but there's some parts of it that are really hard. And this to me is one of my least favorite things to do, because I look at it as us against the market.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking to a seller, you start that conversation like that. It kind of puts them on it is a role reversal, because they're looking at you, you price it, you sell it. I mean, it's all your responsibility, but it's not. But they don't look at it that way sometimes.
Can you guys touch real quick on the importance of eliminating seller's remorse too? Asking things like, how would you feel if your home sells tomorrow? And why would you do that?
Can I do this one again?
Sure.
I learned this one quick. Hey, did you? And you've had this, and I had this, and I got a contract on some land very quickly, and the guy was like, "It's too cheap," and he thought I had cornered him. And it's like, hey man, I work for you. Like, if you want to raise the price, let's raise the price. So we raised the price, and it's still going to sell. We just hit COVID, so I mean, we're just on a little hiatus. But I've showed it twice in 2 days, and somebody else showed it the day before. So I said, hey man, I'm in your corner. Like, if you want to raise the price, and it's not unreasonable or illegal, let's raise the price. And we did, and it will fetch that. So that was one thing. The second one that I've learned to ask people, and I've got a listing up on the west side of Gravois. I learned to ask this: did you raise your kids here? Did you grow up here? Is this your family home? Do you have emotional attachments to this thing? Nope. We've owned it for 4 years. We just buy a lake house every now and then. We like to come down and live at the lake. Sell it. Just sell it. We'll make a couple bucks. It's over with. Okay, done. So some people, hey, did your kids grow up here swimming? You remember your babies and have pictures and things and whatever. They get an offer one day later, they're going to cry their eyes out. But also, if they do say yes, and they say, yeah, we did raise our kids here. Okay, well, you've got another jumping off point to go from, and say, okay, well, just be prepared that when we get an offer tomorrow or next week or next month, just be prepared with all your memories and things that,
I love that.
we're going.
I love that line of questioning. I love it. The biggest thing to me is I wish Susan were on here because she has a great example of what happens when you don't ask that question. Because once you're in it, you've listed it, you didn't ask the question, and then you get an offer, it's really hard to get back out of it. You're looked at all of a sudden as, well, you didn't do much work. You're making too much money. That it's a bad deal. But if you ask the question and you have the conversation, you can you can talk about why the best offers come first.
And that's almost always true. Your best offer is almost always, your first offer is almost always your best offer. Well, I always use the circling birds thing. There's a bunch of buzzards out here circling the market right now. There's all these homes. We've walked through this, and we talked about all these actives. They're on the wish list. We've seen the expireds and the withdrawns. Those are the ones that the market rejected. And so there's there's buyers out there all the time, and they're just waiting. When we talked earlier too, if you remember, we talked about homes being in the market and homes being on the market. There's a lot of homes on the market. There's not the ones that are in the market, they sell. And so whenever we price this thing right, there's a good chance we're going to get a ton of activity in maybe the first 24 hours, certainly in the first week. And if that happens, when we talked about leverage as well, we've got a ton of leverage at that point. If we wait, I'd much rather sell this thing in 24 hours than on the 120th day, wouldn't you? We've got a lot more negotiating skill. A lot more negotiating power at that point. I don't know, something like that.
We have just
really
a
good.
couple more minutes, but I know that we have some new agents. And Mel, I thought this one was a really good one to cover before we end the class. And that's just, how many homes have you sold? Giving your value, especially for a new agent, with being faced with that question.
Oh, I need to think on that one. I should have read that because I have been there.
Mm-hmm.
When we first started, I had never bought my own house.
Mel was the youngest agent in MLS at one time, weren't you?
Yes. Somebody gave me a check once, which was the earnest money check, and I came back. I'm like, man, they gave me $5,000, but I don't know why. And I didn't even know what to ask. So when I first started, I just told them, not a lot, but I work with people that have sold a ton. And that's why I joined RE/MAX, because I am with the best of the best. So any question that you have, I want to assure you I am going to ask before I respond to you, because I have all these people that are behind me rooting for me, and I am so hungry. You need to understand I'm going to work day and night for you more than somebody that has over 100 listings. I can focus just on you. All I'm looking for is for someone to give me that opportunity. So if you can take a chance on me, understand you are going to get 110%. I just need you to give me that chance. Are you willing to do that for me? I would just try to close over and over and just let them know I have ambition. I have skills behind me, and I'll do the very best that I can, but I won't go in just not knowing, because I'm going to ask, and that's why I'm here at RE/MAX.
And if you can back that up with whatever company stats you have and then team stats, the closer that you can get to your own group, the better. And I always believe that anything a realtor says, they need to back up, because people unfortunately don't always believe us. So the more we can base whatever we're saying on facts, the better we are.
Mm-hmm.
You
Thank
know,
you for hitting that one.
If I could reiterate too how the other thing I'm starting to do now during my listings, because not only will you get that offer immediately, but I tell them, how do you guys feel about when we get lowballed? I just put it out there immediately now, and then they'll go, absolutely not. I'm not going to respond. I said, well, here's what we are going to do. My game plan is we are going to respond because we are a want, not a need, and they're going to fish, and they're just going to put out that bait, and I want you to bite. Just give them a nibble is what I'm looking for.
Hey,
The way that I go about that, and it was the best real estate agent I've ever known in my entire life was in San Diego, and he sold a condo of mine there for like $400 or $500 a foot. I mean,
that was prior to you knowing me.
no, he's still the best.
Just kidding.
Well, he's just a screw turner. And when we were selling my place, whenever an offer came in, and we got 10 offers in the first week, he said, I said, oh, I hate that, I hate this, I hate, as a seller, I was like, ah. And with no emotion, he goes, I understand. I advise everyone to counter every offer. And even if you counter at full price, counter it over full price, whatever you want to do. He says, just counter, keep it live. And I still kind of operate that way to this day. I don't know, you guys might do something different, but similar to what Mel was saying, it's like,
it's true. She all the time, Jesse, she will say, I'll hear her, she'll be like, no, we're not going to do that. And it's real sweet. I don't think I could get away with it, but she says, no, we're not. We're going to counter.
yeah, we're going to count. I mean,
no, we're not going to reject them.
Well,
your seller tells you that your seller, every time your seller tells you flat out no, just tell them to walk away. And if you tell the seller, you say, hey, you have someone who wants to buy your property. You just don't know how much they're willing to pay for it. So even if you want to counter at full price, you have someone waiting there to buy it. If you just tell them no, they'll leave. If you counter them, you'll keep it alive, and you might come to a deal.
The other thing I wanted to mention too, when I present the offers, I'm not going to tell you the price. The first thing, I will hold that back because it's not just about price. It's about terms. Can you close on this date? Are the things reasonable with their loan contingency and all of that? So I'll go over more so the highlights of it. The price comes last, because if you give them that lowball price the first thing out of the gate, they don't listen to you anymore. I mean, they're like, they shut off from me and go, nope. Well, if it's a cash offer in 2 weeks and you told me last month that you really needed to get out of here, that's really important to have that clean offer. So then we can work on the price, but I don't want you to not hear the rest of the details.
I think also, Mel, if you set them up originally going in, like we've talked about, if you set them up initially, then to go in with it, whatever you do go in with, it's just like, if you ask the questions about, were your kids raised here or just sell it or whatever, you can go in and say, your mileage may vary, but you can go in a little differently and say, here's a number, and let's just work on it.
Oh, that's Mel, this, everybody knows this, but it's about building that relationship right up front so that you can be that direct and straight with them, because you are genuine. You do want to help them. It is a win-win situation. And if you've built that relationship and they really know that you care about them, what Jesse was saying about their kids and all that, and then you build that relationship, you can give them the most straightforward advice. No, we are going to counter, because you never know where they're going to go. And these people are on paper and we want to sell this house, and here we go.
Right.
Well, hey guys, we're almost out of time. I just want to say a couple closing things. Again, all of these classes, it's about taking action. So here's just some action items that you guys can take as far as objections are concerned. Again, going back to the strategies or processes, the better strategy and process that you have, the better that you are at overcoming concerns and stuff as they hit you. So also, role play is a huge thing with any dialogue in any class. Role play it. Grab a partner, grab me, grab the guys, whoever you can, and we can try to role play some things that you might be thinking about. So those are also great action items. If you love this class, send us a testimonial video. It doesn't have to be very long. You can shoot it to me personally. I would really appreciate that as well. The more people that we can have in here, the more of this that happens, the more ideas, the more fun that we can have and bounce things back off of each other. So I really appreciate your guys' time. David Weisman event tomorrow, please come to that as well, 10 a.m. And let me know if you guys have any questions, okay?
Thank you, Kaylin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks everybody.
Thanks, guys. See you. Have a good rest of your day.
How do you shut this off?